I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and it's an epic dogfight battle with two Android devices. One is the Optimus G, one is the DROID RAZR HD. Which one will win? We'll find out. But first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this that we turn around and give to you at our one-paw bandit game at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your contacts, your web, and your settings, so when you walk out the door, you're good to go. Let's take a look. Is it the Optimus G or the DROID RAZR HD? We'll find out in the full dogfight, which starts right now. As I always say in the dogfight videos, at least the start of the videos, I'm like, these are always hot challenges these times around because they're great devices. You see some high-end Android devices, some high-end iOS devices, some high-end Windows phones, and for you, honestly, it really depends on which ecosystem you find to be the most appealing. Some people love iOS because they have a huge iTunes collection. Some people love Android because they've got Gmail access. They use Google Docs on a regular basis, or I should say Google Drive now. But still, pardon my language. Google Drive now. You see a lot of these different ecosystem challenges spring up. Well, these are two hot Android devices. One's available now, one's coming very soon. This is the LG Optimus G. It's going to be available on AT&T on November 2nd for $199.99. And when it comes to specs, this thing is a powerhouse. It's packing a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU, so quad-core processing power. It's got an 8 megapixel camera on the back. This deviates a little bit from the 13 megapixel camera we've seen on the international builds. For an 8 megapixel camera, what that does is makes it flush up against the back as opposed to sticking out. So 8 megapixel camera here, 4.7 inch IPS HD display. It's got a different design than the international version, an AT&T specific design if you will. It's packing Android 4.0 with LG's user interface known as LG UI 3.0 out of the gate. And you can really see that all around this device is incredibly fast. LG's trying to make a hit back in the US market. They're trying to compete with Motorola, HTC, Samsung, and of course Apple. And you can see with high-end devices like this, hopefully they'll gain some traction and start to regain a following in the US. They've been known for years. They do some great things with washers and TVs. Now they're trying to regain some territory in the smartphone world. Then you see one of Google's product challenges here, at least one of the companies Google owns, Motorola, the DROID RAZR HD. It's a new device available at Verizon for $199.99, and it joins a family of DROID RAZR devices. The DROID RAZR M is $100, the DROID RAZR HD is $200, the DROID RAZR Max HD is $300. Specs-wise, you're looking at a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU here, a 4.7-inch HD display with pen tile, an 8 megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording, and Android 4.0 with Motorola's custom user interface, which honestly is looking more and more like stock Google as the days go on. Now, where this one's a little bit different from the original version, you're like, you know what, I have a RAZR. Why would I go with this one? Well, the difference is a couple of things. One, the design is much more industrial. You can see it's much more of a boxy design, minus the dent that I put in this device when I dropped it on day one. My apologies, Motorola, for that. Looks very similar to an industrial design like you'd see on the iPhone 4S or the iPhone 5, so it's going to depend on which design you prefer. If you kind of are a fan of that Samsung design scheme where it's plasticky and a little bit curvy, you might like the Optimus G on AT&T. If you're looking for that device that's kind of boxy and industrial and has that kind of like firm look to it, perhaps the Motorola DROID RAZR HD. This thing has a 2,530 milliamp hour battery now as well, as opposed to a 1,780 milliamp hour battery we saw in the original RAZR. So a beefed up battery, 16 gigabytes of internal storage here, and like I said, Android 4.0. So 2,100 milliamp hours, 2,530 over here. Both are packing 4G LTE on their respective carriers. So let's take a look at both of these and see what comes with them, shall we? I think we shall. Out of the gate here, apps, let's go look. And we'll do this side by side in comparison. I don't know why this is still dim. Let's take a look here at what happened. Brightness is 100%. There we go. Well, let's try it again here. Apps, out of the gate, Amazon Kindle, AT&T Code Scanner, AT&T Family Map, Locker, Navigator, ready to go, Smart Wi-Fi. A lot of AT&T stuff out of the gate here. Device Help. Scrolling over, you can see Live TV, My AT&T, and then YP Mobile as well. And that looks to be, yep, all the AT&T stuff. And of course, you can see some stuff I've downloaded as well, and I've done a hardware reset since. So all I have right now is Quadrant Standard and Speed Test, and then of course I can access my widgets. But you can really see over here how fast this device is all around. No lag whatsoever on this device. That quad-core processor runs incredibly well. Now that said, I still see some kind of software kinks, if you will, with LG's user interface. Don't get me wrong, huge improvements over previous builds of LG's user interface. When you think about this in comparison to the Spectrum or the Revolution or even the Intuition, which just came out on Verizon, huge improvements on the software front with some great personalization things we'll talk about in just a second. But first, some applications on the DROID RAZR HD. VCast apps, out of the gate, you get MC3 over here, My Verizon Mobile, Mobile Hotspot, Real Racing 2, And then you get visual voicemail for $2.99 monthly, VZ Navigator, Verizon Video, VCast Tones, and that looks to be all the Verizon stuff. Unfortunately, on both of these devices, you can't uninstall the carrier bloatware. Like my hand gesture there, carrier bloatware. It's like dinosaurs going head to head. Carrier bloatware. Meh. That was terrible. Anyway, widgets on both of these devices, so you do get a reasonable amount of customization. I can't believe I just did that on camera. Anyway, reasonable amount of customization on both, but you can really just see the speed. Now that said, I'm really happy that Motorola ditched the TI OMAP processor in favor of the Snapdragon S4 dual-core set because it's a great processor that's been proven to work really well in mobile devices. S4 has received rave reviews all across the board from several tech journalists, myself included, and I've been really impressed overall. Difference down here as well, capacitive buttons, back, home, and then menu. Press and hold home to access recent applications and task manager. Over here you've got on-screen buttons, you've got home, recent applications, and then you got back as well, and I can press home and access my pages. So 7 home screens on both of these devices is the maximum. Though I will say you can't customize which home screen you want on this one. It's always the one to the furthest, or the furthest rather to the left near the quick settings, which you do have access to over here. Notification bars. I love LG's notification bar here for a couple of reasons. One, big fan of these shortcuts, having worked with these on some older LG devices and some Samsung devices. And if you remember back in the day, HTC had the tab down here where you could access some quick settings as well. But let's say, you know what, I'm in here, I'm like, I use GPS on a regular basis. We're going to bring that up to the top as well as Bluetooth. And then Wi-Fi, we'll bring Wi-Fi up to the very top. Quick memo, I don't really use that much. NFC, you know, I use that sometimes. Well, I can go back and you can see I customized it to how I liked it, and I have my custom things up there at the top. Likewise, I can do 1 button, 2 buttons, 3 buttons if I want to, and it just maximizes the size of the buttons across the actual display. So pretty impressive there. Like that level of customization. Over here, you don't get a whole lot of customization on the DROID RAZR HD. Sure, you have some Motorola widgets on this device. We can go over here and take a look, for example. Circles, for example, is a Motorola widget. Would love to see as well, throw that over here, for example, weather, battery indicator, and then of course the clock. Now, on the review of the DROID RAZR HD, people were like, you know what, because I said something to the effect of, I love this physical percentage indicator up top where I can see how much battery life I have in a percentage. Not saying this one didn't have that, but it's in a widget. I'm looking for something actually system-based like this. I love when there's a percentage up there that's dropping pretty quickly, but a percentage up there where I can see at all times what my battery life is, as opposed to this where I'm in between different screens. Still can't see anything up here other than 4G LTE and kind of an arbitrary battery meter. Kind of frustrating there. That's what I meant in the review. So to clarify, if you watch that and you're like, this guy's an idiot, there's a circles widget. How stupid is he? What the worst tech journalist ever? Blah, blah, blah. Nerd talk. Anyway, that's exactly what I meant by that, is I like to see it in the system. Let's take a look at messaging as well, but before we do that, I want to show you some of the customization on the LG side also. You can come in here to settings, for example, and you'll see, first of all, the AT&T version. If you've compared this to the international version, you got different tabs up here: network, sound, display, and general, as opposed to one kind of universal menu structure. So I've got my home screen, my lock screen, I've got wallpaper, portrait view only, so I can turn this on, and home screen is always displayed in portrait. I hate it when you turn it in the home screen. Displays as a landscape home screen area, so I turn that on. Scroll screen circularly, say that fast, scroll screen circularly. And then you got screen swipe effect, which you can change to carousel. I can change it to breeze. So there are some decent customizations here. Accordion, panorama, carousel is what I had it as. And where you see this is in the menu, for example. See how it's rotating like a carousel there. Another awesome one that I really enjoy is when you press and hold an icon, you'll see this little edit button pop up. Well, I can edit the icon and make it my own. So let's say, you know what, that reminds me more of messaging than the other one. You know what, Gmail, let's change it to a G. I'll come in here and I'll select G for Gmail. I can customize this and really make it my own. This is something that's unique that no other manufacturer is doing. I find that to be really unique and something that's pretty cool on the customization side. So you get quite a bit of that. You do get the ability, of course, to change the wallpapers as well. And some pretty neat things: font type, font size. That's pretty neat. And then down here, lock timer, of course, all that typical stuff. Wallpaper, clocks, and shortcuts. I can change my clock as well on the home screen and really make it my own. So you know what, I can come in here. Shortcuts down to the bottom. We'll keep those the same. And then, actually, I kind of like this this clock, so we're going to keep it the exact same. But when I turn it off and back on, you can see it takes up the whole display, tells me the date and the time, and of course I can circle or swipe it and it brings me back in. This is what Motorola's unlock screen looks like. You press and hold the key, or you can just tap it and it brings up all these different things. I can scroll down for text, which brings me to my next thing: text messaging on both of these devices. Now this is the demo number here, as you can see. LG's keyboard, huge improvements here over the original. I'll go ahead and bring this one up as well so you can see Motorola's multi-touch keyboard. Both have 4.7-inch displays, so I'll say the Quick Brown Fox is happy that it is Tuesday and he is full of food. Quick Brown Fox is happy that it is Tuesday and he is full of food. Very easy to type on. Little to no lag. Again, keep in mind quad-core processing power over here makes this device exceptionally fast all around. No lag whatsoever, and you get a couple of different keyboards out of the gate. You do get the stock Android keyboard, Google Voice Typing, of course, and LG's keyboard, which I've been the first to bash LG's keyboard in the past. It's not the best in the world by any means, but I've been really impressed to date with the LG keyboard over here. Very impressed all around, and of course you can do some neat things like I've talked about in other like Samsung devices, for example, where you can come in here to settings, you can change the conversation skin. I love these customization options, so I can come in here, change the background to this kind of raindrop look and feel, change my notifications, and I can come back into Stephen Williams and you can see the background looks a little bit different. Over here you don't get that level of customization, unfortunately, but you know what? We're going to turn on Alexa Stevenson here, or switch over to Alexa Stevenson, and we'll say the Quick Brown Fox. And both of these devices have absolutely beautiful displays. That is something I'd point out here. Both are great. It just depends on what you prefer. And of course, portrait to landscape transitions are reasonably fast over here as well. That S4 processor, really nice to see it over on this device. Now, if you're somebody that likes a stock Android look and feel, this is the closest you're going to get from an OEM. At least it's not a Nexus device. Very impressed here. You do see some Motorola customizations, obviously, but this is looking more and more like stock Android as the day goes on, which is really funny considering that Moto Blur used to be the most obnoxious user interface on the planet. So Quick Brown Fox is ready to go and eat, for example. Quick Brown Fox is ready to go and eat. He was full over here. He's ready to go eat over here. So you can see typical Motorola look and feel, but again, there's something like this. If you're used to the RAZR, you're used to the RAZR Max, you're used to the Atrix HD, you're going to notice a lot of similarities here. So I think for some people that are migrating up from one Motorola, maybe moving from an older Motorola to this, you're going to be like, you know what, there's not a whole lot of difference other than some minor design stuff. It's looking kind of similar to the old Motorola I had. So if you're looking for a change, it might be a device like that. If you're really happy with Motorola, and granted, they do exceptional jobs in the radio department. The keyboard's great. Love the fact that they've added a bigger screen and a bigger battery. This may be a device for you. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll talk more about this and more about speed tests in the next video.